really have no idea what to talk about. And wise people have told me often when that's the case I should shut up. But somehow not knowing is a gift. And speaking from not knowing is probably better than speaking from knowing. Two things are hitting me. One is that this was an awful week. And two, what a gift it is to sit with you guys. What a extraordinary, redemptive, fulfilling and beautiful quality there is to being together. And how grateful I am for the enormity of effort that is represented in this room, people making an effort to come here. And I woke up this morning and I said to Blanche, how am I going to teach today? Because the week was relatively assaulting on some level. And you all know, the story. It's the crazy story of the musical, which is 6 or 7 years of my life arriving at a place that I didn't want it to arrive at. And in many ways, I would just call it either critically reviled on some level, although I have still refused to read the reviews, or dismissed, which is somehow even more painful. And so it represents many, many years of effort, and I don't know what its future is, and I really don't know. It could still be a brilliant future. One has no idea, but the momentary experience of it is sorrowful and heavy, and very much being experienced. It's very much part of what I'm going through, and so I would call even what I'm going through a kind of grief, even though it may be premature grief. It's a grief for what I was hoping would be different. And I think a lot of us live with that hope in life. We hope that things will be different. We wish the outcome to be other than what it is. Even despite our best efforts, sometimes things just don't come together the way you want them to, and I would say for many people that's often the case. You end up with life being not what life you imagined for yourself. And I've had truly an amazing life, and the experience of this musical is one of the greatest pleasures and joys of my entire life, and that doesn't go away. But I've had this feeling of I don't even want to go into New York City. It's like, why do I want to be in the environment where this thing now, which brought me so much pleasure, is causing pain? And I know what I'm expressing is not unique. I think everybody has experiences in life that at one point were joyful and then suddenly are not joyful, and the turnaround is kind of shocking. And often one has experiences, which is what I've gone through, which is what I call being blindsided. You really, for me, sit in a theater full of people laughing, crying, screaming, applauding, stomping, cheering, and think, wow, this is working. And then you suddenly find out that the critical establishment doesn't agree with you, and that even your own peers are fairly dismissive. And the mind doesn't compute that. It's called cognitive dissonance. You really don't understand what that means or how you arrive there, and are you right or are you wrong? Are all these audiences wrong? Hard really to kind of understand what that is. So there's a lot of heavy-duty weight sort of descending upon this being of mine. And years and years and years of spiritual work, and one of the things that you will discover in many people doing spiritual work is they think that that will somehow affect the outcome of a life. And it will in one level. Real spiritual work, the key word is work, because it makes you potentially very productive, very engaged, very active, very vibrant in the world. And that definitely has been my experience. I've had a vibrant, active, productive life, which I love. But even the deepest of the Buddhist, Hindu, spiritual teachings tell you it's not about the result of your work, it's only about the work. You have no control over result, you only have control over effort. And that you have to work without wishing it to end up one way or another. And, you know, if ever there was a way to learn that lesson, I'm being taught it this week. And it's a very strong, powerful lesson. You know, if I hadn't had years of spiritual practice, I think I would have been done in by this on some level. That's my guess. I would have just been throwing in the towel, and that's not how I feel at all. I mean, I feel really sad, you know, and again the word sorrow comes up. But I'm not unhappy that I did everything I did to live the life of someone who creates something and has it emerge in the world, for better, for worse. Anyone who has a child knows what I'm talking about. You know, you put your children into the world and they're not dissimilar to a musical. You know, you put them in the world and you don't know who's going to love them. And a lot of people don't love your children, you know. Sometimes you don't love your children. And people, you know, you produce what you can and then you give it over to the world. I mean, there's no giving over, because clearly it's not yours to give. But there's a kind of detachment. There's a kind of simple detachment that starts to take place and allows, or recognizes rather than allows, that the world will do what it wants to do. That's what it does. And all of us are basically putty in its hands, if you want to put it that way. The universe uses us quite brilliantly, and it teaches us along the way. And their lessons are strong lessons. They're powerful. And more powerful than we want to believe. You know, the lessons of the little kid stealing your truck when you're a year old, you know, that feels like the end of the world. Someone just took your truck. Well, this feels the same way. You know, you never quite get over the kind of lessons that life teaches. It's a tough ride. But all of that said, there's this place inside us that, with practice, you can arrive at. And it's a very interesting place. And the minute I sat down to teach today, that place did what it always does. It just rose up and filled the space of this being, and then entered into the room and was met by a force rising up in each of you. And that force rising up and meeting and recognizing itself was so exquisitely beautiful, so beyond everything that life causes as pain and suffering. It's in a way, the core beauty of the whole ride. The core beauty is this meeting of each other, this coming together, this thing we bring each other, which is our own presence, our own truth, our own reality. And that comes together, and we find this extraordinary place of, I hate the words are never able to describe it, but it is release, freedom, home, forgiveness, truth, bliss, light, awareness. And they ride above it all. They just ride above it. They are the one thing that washes clean all the other experience. Just washes it clean. And I really sat down today in amazement, because the minute I sat here, it was there. It was there. I didn't have to call it. I didn't have to beckon it. I didn't have to say, please help me. I didn't have to do anything. I just sat down. And I noticed in every one of you, truly, in every one of you in this room, you just sat down. And as you sat down and you were still for a moment, true presence and stillness arose. The beauty of doing this in a group is that we reflect something, and that reflection almost makes it brighter. We reflect ourselves. We are ourselves. We are our own presence. And the journey to become that, the journey to arrive at the shared presence, is about as good as it gets on the planet Earth. It heals wounds, it embraces, it allows, it forgives, it nurtures, it takes care of stuff. My experience of the last several years has been really fascinating. It's been the falling away of everything that I knew of as Bruce. Falling away. A lifetime of spiritual practice was taking pieces, sometimes filaments, sometimes chunks, sometimes whole rooms full of Bruce, and just going, gone, gone. And then, as most of you know, about a year and a half ago, what felt like the last fragment of Bruce just went, and I kept looking over my shoulder, like wondering, where did it go? What was it even that left? But I just know there was no Bruce left. Or that's what it felt like. I've talked to other people who know this experience, this awakening experience, and they all describe the same thing, that there is a pile of debris left. There's a pile of old stuff left that still has to be burned up, still has to be gotten rid of. You're surprised by it. Everyone is surprised by it. There it is. And in a certain sense, I can't say this is the last chunk because I don't know, but this musical thing was maybe the biggest gift, because it represents something massive, and I would say final, but we'll see, that needed to be done with. It needed to be born, and it needed to, I don't know if the word die is appropriate, or just finished, dropped off. And so that's what's happening. And so what I'm experiencing, I think there is some kind of grieving going on, but it's not like the kind of grieving that takes a lifetime or it takes, years. It's just, all I needed was for you guys to come here, for us to sit together and share this. It's really remarkable. If in the end, nothing is left but what is happening in this room, it's the most extraordinary thing to arrive at. Now, having said that, I can see this going too. I can see this all falling away as well. And as I've tried to describe to you guys a number of times, the deeper I go, the less there is there. And what appears more and more in front of these eyes is this thing I call nothingness, qualitylessness. And I have to say, it is arriving with greater and greater persistence. Absolute nothingness. But to see nothingness and experience it through a body, through this thing that's still here, is quite a journey. It's quite an experience. I don't know where it leads exactly. There's still a resistance to it, I'll tell you that. There's still a part of this being that doesn't like nothingness, but it's arriving with such ferocity that there you go. So how this all plays out, I have no clue. I have no clue. But I do think, I turn on this camera. I think it's worth sharing this with you, and whoever else hears this. I think it's worth sharing this journey because I think in some way we all pass through it. At some point along the way, your most cherished whatever may leave you. Dream, person, hope, may just go in a blindsided way, like out of nowhere, just gone. And so where do you turn and what do you do at that point in time? Well, I'm hoping that what I'm saying here today makes sense. You turn to each other. You turn to this room full of people who sit in presence with you, who sit in stillness, not in judgment, because I know you guys. You're not sitting here judging me. You're not sitting here saying, oh, Bruce lost it, or or too bad his show fell apart, or whatever. What I'm feeling arising here is this incredible compassion, and stillness, and love, and being. And there's nothing else that's wanted. The worst thing in the world is everybody trying to come to me and explain, oh, they're so wrong and they don't get it, and all. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. The process is what matters. The process of liberation, the process of living through reality, living through whatever it is you're going through. You may all be going through losses of other dimensions. I don't know all of your losses. I don't know all of the frustrations. But I will tell you, every one of you will lose everything you love. Every one of you will lose everything. And some will lose it sooner than later. Some will lose it in ways that make sense. Some of you will lose it in ways that don't make sense. Some of you will grieve for the rest of your life. Some of you will find a way to not to do that. I mean, the biggest loss in the end is of yourself. And I will tell you, talking from the front lines, it's not a big deal. If anything, losing yourself may be the greatest gift imaginable. Even this grief of losing things in chunks, or in terms of people we love, or circumstances we hold on to, even that, as painful as it seems, as hard as it seems to live through, is a gift. It's a gift. It's falling away. Why is it a gift? Because it will all be taken. To give it up now, to free yourself now of stuff, even though it drives you into a place of such suffering sometimes, it's still so much preferable than having to give it all up in the flash of a second when the time comes for it all to be taken away. Learning detachment, learning to free yourself, learning to let go, learning to give yourself to God, really, or to what is. That's the lesson of all this. Now, it may be that having never practiced this and standing on the edge of the cliff at the end of your life with no preparation whatsoever, you may be able to go, yes, and jump off and free yourself. So it's possible you don't have to do any spiritual work at all in your whole life, ever. But it's also possible you'll be standing there and at that moment you'll go, I can't do this, and you have to. At the very end you have to let it all go. You have to let it all go. So, really, so many people, they write to me and they say, and basically they imply, if I do spiritual work, will I live forever? I want some affirmation that I will live forever. And the secret message in most people's spiritual life is they're trying to find a way that they will survive death. But the problem with their desire is they want to personally survive death. And that's not what happens. What dies is the person. What survives is presence. What survives is what you are, not who you were. And what you are is the one thing most people don't know. And the reason most people don't know what they are is because they're always involved in what they were or what they might become. Very few people ever get to know what they are because it means stopping for a minute, being still, being present, letting go of the past, letting go of the future, and just going, huh. But I can't tell you how rare that is. Because the mind isn't prepared to do that. The mind can't do that. The mind has no place in the present at all. The mind has to completely step away. And most of us are so identified with mind and the emotions that it creates that we can't get there. The only way to get there is to want so badly to get there that you do this thing of sitting and, if you're lucky, getting instruction that says, help me to surrender. Help me to let go. And when you do that, you start to get these tastes, these simple tastes of presence. The taste of presence is the taste of the infinite. The taste of presence is this unbelievably delicious freedom, this sense of such profound joy and gratitude and okayness that you can barely handle it. And you come to these classes, as I went to Rudy's classes for years, and I would walk away with maybe 4 minutes of this feeling. 4 minutes of absolute amazement. So extraordinary that all I wanted was to taste it again. And so I would go to class 5 times a week. I moved into an ashram in Indiana and lived there for years, trying to do this twice a day, having that taste, but it was worth it. It was worth it, because it tasted so great. And I would have given anything for that, and did. I gave up a career, as a museum curator. I gave up so much stuff. I kept giving up stuff to get these tastes. And then what happens, if you really work and let go of the thing that fights this, that resists it, these tastes go from 4 minutes to 8 minutes, to maybe a whole day, to maybe a week or 2. And you go, oh, I'm enlightened. Oh my God, I've done it. I'm free. And then suddenly, it's gone. Just gone. And you have no idea how it's gone, or what you did wrong, or what that you have to now do something twice as hard to get it back. When in fact it's the opposite. It's the not doing. It's the not doing. You learn to not do, but you don't even know you're not doing. You just let go. And you sit there. And then the awakening occurs of its own nature whenever it wants to. It just goes, and it lifts you completely out of the picture and just leaves this presence. And in the beginning, that presence is everything you remember it from being in those little moments. It's like blissful, joyful. You start crying. You can't believe how it's finally happened. There's no you left. It's pure beauty. And it goes on for months and months and months, or maybe years. And then, even that starts to fade away. And when that starts to fade away, that's where you realize what's still holding on. Don't take that away. I don't want to lose that. That's what I was working for. There's that hunger to hold on to that beauty. And the real work then is even that. Let it go. It's hard. It's hard. But that's what we're doing. And then the reflection of that will be, in my case, taking the musical away. It's better than taking your children away. I can tell you that. but it's the same kind of experience. It's just freeing you from every little fingernail hold that you have on being. Everything that wants to hold on to something separate, that wants to hold on to something that isn't one with all that is. And finally, every fingernail. And I'm assuming the greatest of saints, that's all they've done. They just went. But believe me, they've had to have their fingers pulled back too from the cliff. Everyone has to. We're all the same. Buddha sat under a bo tree for how long? I don't remember how long. He had to go through the whole thing. He just pushed it forward. But you can't really do it. That's the thing. You can't really do it. We're all under the bo tree. Every one of us is under the bo tree. Every one of us is dealing with the demons and the angels and the seductresses of the world. That's what we do until we don't. So we're on this ride, and I think the key lesson is we're on it together. That's the most important message that comes out of this today. We're on it together. We're not on it to be better than another person. We're not on it to find superiority or to find separate anything. We're on it to let go of that separation that truly embraces the oneness that we share, and that we bring this together to each other, and that's what we do here. Is the holiest of holy things in this world. There is nothing better. There is nothing better. Well, maybe sex. But it's trying to do much of the same thing. Except you get attached. And you can get attached to this too. You have to be careful about that. You have to be careful. Getting attached to your spiritual life and your spiritual practice has its own problems. You have to let it go. Letting it go doesn't mean you throw it away. Letting it go means you let it go. It's like that. Nothing leaves you other than what wants to leave. You don't throw stuff out, it falls away. There's nothing you have to do. Just be present. Just be present with what is. Be present with your life, because that's what is. Reality is what's in front of you. Period. It's not even what's going to happen next week or next year. Reality isn't what's going to happen or what happened. Reality is this. This is all there is. Period. Okay, the talk that didn't want to happen happened. Any questions?
2 months ago, my aunt died, and she was a month away from being 104. And she tried everything to stay alive. She was a big vitamin taker, and when she was in the hospital, they didn't let her have her vitamins. So there was nothing she could do. And when I was saying goodbye to her, I saw a golden ocean. She was a golden ocean. And I was wondering if that's what you join when you die, when she died the next morning, or when you're open, that everybody is a golden ocean?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer. We're golden oceans that don't know we're golden oceans. We're all that. That's all this is. Covered up in emotion and covered up in intellect and covered up in hope and ambition and fear and all of that stuff. But it's all it's all wave action, sparkling in the sunlight and not in the moonlight, let's say. But what is it? In the depth of being, it's one ocean. It's one thing. And ultimately, we are all brought back into that. We're not even brought back into it because we're never not that. You're never not that. But you're brought into remembering that you're that. I mean, I'm watching my granddaughter, who arrived in the world with such awareness and perfection, as far as I could tell. Looking at her was like looking at the purest of being, and it just knocked me out every day. Well, now she's starting to own that in the way that we do. You know, the ego-minded terrible twos. No, I won't do that. You know, yelling and screaming, running around. You know, all of that stuff erupts as it's supposed to. And that's the beginning of individuation. You know, you become this separate thing for a reason. Why? Like, why does a wave rise out of the ocean and come back? I don't know. It's just how it works. We do the same thing. We rise out. We have these moments in the sun and night and stars and moon, and then we go back. Do you not want to have that experience? I can't think of a single person, your grandmother included, who would have not wanted to have been on that ride. It's so amazing. It's so unbelievably amazing to exist, to come into this. Nobody wants to give it up. On the other hand, we all are deeply disturbed by the intensity of it, the emotion of it, the fear that comes with it, the suffering that's part of it. It's all, I mean, what is suffering? Suffering is knowing it's going to end. That's what suffering is, you know, and that it's going to end and probably hurt when it ends. Those are the two components. And the idea of taking that pain and making it like infinite, when in fact it's just in this moment and that moment and that moment. And if it lasts for too long, really what happens is you die. And you're back in the ocean. So most of us are ignorant about the fact that we're this temporary wave. We're ignorant of the fact that we're infinite beings and that we live forever, really. We're all ignorant of that. So the whole idea of a spiritual life is something comes in from the core of the ocean and says, enjoy this. Enjoy the ride. Yes, it's up and down and good and bad, and yes, it's full of yin and yang, and that's what it is. That's how it works. But would you ever not want it? Would you ever not want to have painted one of your paintings or made one of your sculptures, or to have not met Michael, or to not met Rudy, or to not have all of this congregation? Would you want that? No. It's worth it. It's worth this whole thing to have that. Now, would I rather I didn't have to suffer what's going on with me this last week? I would rather not have to do that. That would be great. But I couldn't have suffered it without the incredible years of making this thing happen. Those were what was meaningful. That was the joy. Having all of you guys come together and share that moment with me. I said to everybody, I said, that was my bar mitzvah, my wedding, and my funeral, all wrapped up into one thing. It was so extraordinary. Would I like that to go on forever? Yes. Will it? You know? So anyway, the answer is, I think we're all that. We all return to that. Some of us return, I think, with open arms. Some of us return with, no, 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 don't take me. But of course, once you get there, you go, yes, take me. You know, that's all you want, is to be taken. All you want is to know that you never left. That you are that, I mean, from what you experience, those of us who've tasted that, and there are people who've tasted more than I have, when you feel that again, when you return to that source of your being, the mother of your being, you return to that, imagine what that feels like. Imagine returning to that unbelievable love, assuming your mother loved you. And most people don't even, this is bigger than their own personal mother love. It's true love. It's true love. And you return to that. And it is rich and delicious and sexy and everything that you ever wanted it to be. And it just takes you in. Or reminds you that you've always been there. That everything you've been through, these tastes and experiences, were just it wanting to know what it felt like to be. And we're all the tasters of the world. That's what we are. We're tasters of the world in its most remarkable and most awful aspect. And it doesn't know the world unless it has us to taste it. That's what we are. We are the ones who tell it what it is. We live for it. It is us living. So your grandmother knew that. Or you saw it in her. I mean, I don't know where the truth lies, but that golden ocean, it
was beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it was love.
And it was love. That's why they say God is love. Mm-hmm. And because that's really, if you want to give it a name, and it's hard to name it because it's so unbelievably unnameable, but love comes close. and you settle into it, and you just, and there's, and what you have what I call walking gratitude. If it happens while you're still alive, which has been the gift of awakening, you have a kind of walking gratitude that comes and goes. I mean, you think it's going to be there forever, but what's there forever is what is. And what is rain, thunder, beautiful day, horrible day, freezing cold, the dog shits on the rug. You know, days, you have all those things happen. Our dog didn't shit on the rug, by the way. But I was just appreciating the fact that Napa used to always shit on the rug right in here. You know, so you don't worry about it, guys. But she did, you live with whatever happens. And do you like it or not? There is a part of you that doesn't like it or does like it, but it gets weaker and weaker. It just is what it is. You know, this week I have experienced real suffering, and I was going, you know, I thought that was gone, but I will tell you, sitting in this room today, it's gone. This moment is perfection. It's perfection. It's pure joy. I am tasting the love and joy of what is right now, living in this body, living in this room, living in this space, sitting with people I love. It is so unbelievably remarkable. And that's the reality that's occurring. What else can I say? I don't know. I mean, some people sit and that's not occurring. You know, yesterday it wasn't occurring. Right now it is. So that's for me the lesson. You know, it is what it is. But for me also, there is, and I think for everyone here, there's a knowledge somewhere inside us that we are that we are that joy, we are that love, we are that beauty, we are all we're seeking already. And the fact that we forget it is okay, because that's how it works. Krishna danced with the gopis, you know, he kept hiding from them, he kept hiding so they could rediscover him. And every time they rediscovered him, they went, oh. And when I play peekaboo with my granddaughter, you know, it's total joy every time. You know, it's like, come on already. You know I'm going to come back. You know I'm going to do it again. And yet there's this unbelievable joy. Well, we're just like that little kid. And every time Krishna, the universe, love itself, shows itself again, we go, like we're seeing it for the first time, but we're not. We've seen it over and over and over. And if you meditate and you live this life, you see it all the time. It comes back regularly, maybe 2 minutes, it may be an hour, it may be a week, but it shows itself. That's the reward of sitting. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, I was pointing at the camera, but do you have a question?
More of an appreciation. I did want to just show some appreciation for you sharing your last week with us. I don't really read the paper, so I just found out today. And having experienced the Broadway show myself, I was just ecstatic with the beauty of it. And as we sit here now and we hear about the critique and stuff, it just and your response to it it strikes me as just poetry in motion. It's
didn't feel that way.
It's prophetic that the whole theme of Ghost is living itself for the whole cast and everyone that was involved with it, and how they need to deal with that now, whether letting it go and embracing it and as a part of life. It's just again, it's just prophetic. Poetry in motion is an interesting word for it. It has a poetic aspect to it. It's whatever is happening with it now is a very big drama and big deal for all of us, and it's really death and resurrection. Mm-hmm. We're really living it. And then there'll be some of the subway ghosts that are dealing with it, and then others will be more exactly right. Rising. Right, and we have no idea where it's going really. I mean, right now, I'm not going to go through it all on tape, but there's a fight for its life, and it's a beautiful thing.
How much of what you think you experience do your students experience?
Well, I think we all experience it in our own way, but Rudy used to talk about us in the class as kind of buffers or absorbers, shock absorbers for him.
That's what I'm talking
and so when he took on a big shock, he felt he had to distribute it to the whole class in order for him to get through it, but also in order, because everyone in the class who got that
got a piece of something that made them work harder and made them grow. So in a way, it was symbiotic. It was a gift to each other. So I assume on some level, but I don't know for a fact, that that's spreading out to all of you. But, you know, our connection, the connection with Rudy had a more fundamental aspect than I think what your connection with me is. I don't create that kind of patterning. So I'm not convinced that that's going on, although somebody like you, I mean, you do have a particular kind of attachment connection, which I think will resonate in that way. I think you will pick up stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's different, and I don't require that. I don't want to lay it on people. But if somebody wants it, it's theirs to have. Anyone else? Okay. Again, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Class next week, I think, is going to be in the city, and I'm off to London tomorrow, so I'll just be coming back. But I'll do it in the city, and it may be the last class in the city, in that apartment.
On Sunday?
Yeah, so if you can't come, I get it. Yeah, Mother's Day, don't come.
Bring your mother.
Bring your mother, or go see your mother, but don't come to class. If there was a choice to be made, mothers come first. Thank you.